Welcome to episode 12 of New Money Talks.
That's a good one. We got a good one here today. This one was quick too. It's quick turnaround.
That was the quickest turnaround of a podcast I've ever done in my entire life.
10 minutes, calendar invite sent, boom, we're here right now. I think Kyle will do the intro though.
Yeah. We got our new friend Jesse K. We're going to be getting to know you a little bit more. We just had a great conversation, but we want to save some sauce for the podcast. So how do I describe you? Philanthropist, podcast owner, servicing. I know you have an agency, so we'll get into like the money aspect of things, but also maybe a little bit into like personal life, is wherever we want to go. But how would you introduce yourself? What's your like 3-minute sales pitch?
Tell the world.
Well, first off, thank you guys for having me on. This was definitely the fastest turn podcast, either with me as the host or me as a guest ever.
Yeah.
So very impressive, especially for an in-person podcast. We crushed it. But I guess my background, or the short version of it, is I've always been into entrepreneurship and business. My dad was an entrepreneur right out of school, and I grew up sort of seeing that. I'd come home from school every day and see him taking phone calls by our pool in the back and be like, I want to do that. Like, this guy built his business and has offices across the country and did it from home and was at every practice, every game. And I was like, I want to do that when I grow up. So I flipped shoes on eBay when I was 9 or 10. I then started a sports editing business where I'm terrible at design, but I would have I'd do the little Photoshop stuff of putting an athlete in an Oregon background and I'd try and flip those for $6 because I thought that was a ton of money when I was 12 or 13. And then I think the first real thing was I started a podcast when I was 16. It was called 20 Under 20s at that time, to try and help inspire the next generation of youth entrepreneurs by interviewing successful entrepreneurs in their 20s or under. The issue with that, of course, is I ran out of successful people in their 20s or under. So I had to up the age and rebrand it to Trendsetters. Did that for around 5 years. Had the pleasure to get to interview people including Jack Dorsey from Twitter and Square, Mark Cuban, Gary Vaynerchuk, Candace Parker, Eric Nardini, Adam Schefter, a bunch of, list goes on, of just entrepreneurs and athletes and people I looked up to.
Insane.
It was a crazy journey. And then outside that, I've been running an agency called Viber Media since my senior year of high school, working with different pro athletes and brands on their digital and social platforms. Started a nonprofit with a friend during COVID in March of 2020 called the Making Lemonade Fund. We mobilized around 400 college students, some young professionals and high schoolers, and we got around 400. Yeah, I think we had 400 or 500 kids involved, raised around $130,000 in COVID relief.
That's awesome.
And then, that's right. That's most of the stuff.
Pretty good sales pitch.
This one was funny. A common sales pitch. Everyone's talking the same stuff. This was funny though, because I was like, yo, Kyle, this guy's coming. He's like, what the hell does this guy do? And I was like, honestly, I don't know. But look at his Instagram. There's a lot of famous people on here. So I was like, this is going to be good. How old are you? Let's start with that one.
I'm 22. Oh, yeah. My mom would be very disappointed if I didn't say I just graduated. The day we never thought would happen. And I get equal amount of shit as I get congrats on graduating college. So I say that very carefully, but my mom would be disappointed if I didn't.
It's funny. In our world, it's like, if you graduate, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
I think you go either way, 100%.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, 2 out of the 3 of us graduated here. Kyle dropped out, but Kyle was making money when you were dropping out, so it's all good.
Yeah, so I'm 22.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah. And you're from New Jersey native too?
New Jersey native, born in New York City, but from any time I could ever remember, lived in Jersey. Went to school in Jersey for the first 2.5 years of college at Stevens in Hoboken, and then finished at Cornell in upstate New York.
Fantastic.
Not as exciting in Ithaca as it is in Hoboken, though. I'll tell you that.
It's a little cold up there.
A little cold, little in the middle of nowhere. And we just got cows. We got, cows. We're 4 hours from civility and humanity.
So I want to go into a few things because your story is sick. You name drop some fire people. It's crazy because this man knows more people than anybody.
I don't know about that.
At your age, it's come on, a lot of freaking people. I want to dive deep into how the hell you started. It seems like the podcast was the reason you started all that. So walk us through all that. How'd you think of even starting a podcast?
So the story is it's crazy. And I'm sure you guys have noticed this too. A lot of things in life happen where if you map all the way backwards, the smallest decisions create a cascading effect for the rest of your life, which is insane. Yeah. The reason all of this happened was because I tried to drop out of an entrepreneurship class my junior year of high school because I heard you had to write a business plan. And I thought that was stupid. And they said it's too late to drop. So then I was in the class and we had to come up with a product or service and write a business plan for it. And once again, I thought that was fucking stupid because I didn't know yet. And I realized all these kids in my class had great ideas, but nobody knew how to actually execute on it. I was like, all right, let me make my project interviewing successful people so they can teach all these kids how to do things.
That's smart. And you're like 16.
I'm 16. Everyone was chirping me and nobody knew what a fucking podcast was. This is like pre-Joe Rogan shit.
Yeah.
So,
Actually,
like 2016. People were like, what the fuck's a podcast? Like, that's weird. I got so much shit for doing podcasts. And then obviously, who's going to come on a random 16-year-old's podcast? So I started with my normal subject line on emails on like podcast interview. Nobody fucking cared. Who cares? It's a normal podcast. Changed my subject line to 16-year-old podcaster. Cold emails got 90% open rates.
Wow, that's good to know.
Too bad we're not 16.
Oh, there's just everyone's got their unique angle. Mine was that I was 16.
Not the joke now. See, we crack these jokes once in a while.
Yeah,
Keep it light.
So I did that, and then really I just used a bunch of I used Rocket Reach, this tool to find people's emails.
I remember Rocket Reach.
Yeah, it's like how you hustle your way to guess people's emails. I used a tool called Mixmax to see if people were opening the emails. I would literally send 350 cold emails a day every day for 6 months. I was out of my fucking mind.
Damn.
And that's how I got the first couple guests for my podcast.
But like it sounds like your dad's the reason like that made, because like no 16, like look, I started my first one when I was 16 too. We were teaching kids how to code in Bergen County. Taught maybe like 30, 40 libraries and 4,000, 5,000 kids how to code, right? So like we were hustling back then, but like I didn't even know what a cold email, mix, match, rock. I didn't know any of that crap. Like so walk us through like what your dad does and how he like got you to figure this shit out. Cause that's kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's funny. Like my parents have been enormous mentors and my dad in business forever, but I will give him credit. He didn't push me to do any of it. Like he's always supportive when I went to him for advice, but this was a little bit of my own insanity. Like I don't even think he was on the wave of like send 300 emails a day. I think he thought I was fucking nuts for the time being. He supported me, of course, but nobody really pushed me except I had this. My tendencies are very weird. When I get locked in on something, I just don't sleep until I figure out how to do it. Like it was the same with the nonprofit.
It's a good skill to have.
It's just it becomes obsessive, like some OCD form of like, nothing else in my life becomes important outside of habits except for doing it. So I just was like, all right, well, I'm going to make this work and I'm just going to keep doing it. And like I was telling you guys before we started, I think for the first year, I didn't break 100 listeners in a month ever. I think I definitely lied to get people on the show for the first year with the numbers, but it took years to build up an audience and get the credentials and credibility to get to interview people. And then
that's awesome.
A couple times to just hustle around.
And you were saying you got up to like 100,000 like downloads a month, something like that, some crazy stuff, right?
I went back like probably 3 years in, which was, I guess 3 years ago now or 2 years ago now was really towards the peak where I was posting them weekly. I was very involved, got cool guests on and scaled it up from there.
So walk me through some of these cool guests because they're pretty cool. Like tell me some of them. Tell me the names and how the hell did you figure it? I know you said cold email, but like,
I want to know the subject line for GaryVee. Was it 16-year-old podcast?
I guarantee you, we'll look on my phone after. Well, GaryVee, I think I probably sent, I'm sorry, Gary. I think I sent him 75 emails. But I just kept begging for 5 minutes of his time. And then eventually he gave me 5 minutes of his time. I'd had his brother on, AJ, who was an awesome interview. Jack Dorsey was a unique one. He was the co-founder of Twitter and Square. He was doing a Periscope or a Twitter Live, whatever those are. And I'm 17. I'm a senior in high school, sitting there spamming over and over again. I'm 17. Can I have 5 minutes of your time? And he goes, sure. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. Like, Grady said yes, but how do I prove it? And what do I do? I was like, Mom and Dad, Jack Dorsey said he'd come on my podcast.
Your mom's like, who the hell is Jack Dorsey?
My mom and dad are like, who is that? But yeah, go for it. So I screen record the Periscope of him saying yes. And I started cold emailing, cold calling, literally like Twitter HQ. And I was like, your CEO said you'd come on my podcast. Like, let's do it. Eventually, his assistant responds, and I was going to fly to San Francisco for a 5-minute meeting with him. And I was still 17, and you need to be 18 to check into hotels or some shit. So my mom was going to have to come. I had to get the amount of times I had to check into hotels at 17 in other cities because I was too young to check.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you need to be 18 or 21 in a lot of cities to go speak. So when I had a first speech in Toronto, and it was actually Gary speaking there too, my dad had to go with me because I legitimately could not check into a hotel.
You've done like speeches before?
I've done, that was my first. If you want to make fun of me, type in Jesse K on YouTube, my first public speech ever, and I used to have terrible anxiety. I'd never given a public speech before, thought I was too cool to practice, and in Toronto, walked out, and there was 3,000 people there, and Gary was the speaker after me, and I was tweaking. So if you want to watch a video of me tweaking, Just look that up. But
So what was the public speaking stuff about? Sorry, I'm going
people
to
just
that.
reach out to like.
Oh, because you had the
during
podcast. Oh, interesting. So like
So it
you're
was
interesting.
talk-
Like
yeah, I
come
don't know.
talk.
I don't know why they thought I was relatively interesting, but did that. So Jack, I was going to fly out there, and his chief of staff was like, actually, he's going to be in New York next week. Do you want an hour of his time, and you can interview our CMO? I was like, yes and yes. So that was a cool one. Only other cool one, top of mind. I mean, there's some. I DM'd Adam Schefter on Instagram, and he responded and did it. Mark Cuban, I cold emailed when I started the podcast, like, I don't know, 5 years ago. And he, I literally cold emailed him and he said no. He was like, I thank you for reaching out, but I can't do it. And then I literally reached back out during the peak of COVID. Well, him saying yes or him saying no made me realize that these people read the email. So I was like, oh shit, cold emails work.
Yeah.
And then peak of COVID, I reached out and I'm like, hey, Mark, I know it's 3 years later, but like, I assume you have some more time now. And
you just like replied to the email 3 years ago.
COVID started last week. We're all sitting here. Like, you definitely have time on your hands. The Mavs aren't playing. Like, there's got to be something. And you respond in 10 minutes and we set it up.
Damn.
So crazy. Got super lucky on that.
Damn. What we were talking about was Aaron Rubin, right? That
Michael
was
Rubin,
Sorry, Michael Rubin. Aaron Rubin is another person. He's big in the 3PL world. Shout out to Aaron Rubin.
Yeah.
Michael Rubin.
Yeah.
Did you do a podcast with him?
I did not do a podcast. I should do a podcast.
You should do a
with him.
podcast
If I
with
get
him.
the podcast going again.
Explain to people who the hell he is too, because he's an interesting person.
Yeah, Michael is awesome. I'm so lucky to have gotten to have worked with him in the past. He is the founder, I don't even know if he founded it, but he's the owner of Fanatics, was a co-owner of the Sixers. I think he just sold them actually because he's starting a sports book of Fanatics, so he can't do both. But dude's a beast. He started businesses from when he was, if you want to see like a cool entrepreneur story, I think he went bankrupt when he had a ski business.
He was selling like snowboarding gear.
Yeah, skiing snowboards. And once he was 16 and 1 year it just didn't snow. So he went bankrupt because he had no money and he owed like tens of thousands of dollars
of inventory.
And then eventually got his way back, started flipping overproduced, I think, shoes to retailers. Has been the CEO of like public companies since he was like 24. He's a beast. And I got lucky. I worked with him when I was going into my freshman year of college. He was one of my first clients, and I helped build out his Instagram and social channels and learned just so much from being around him, getting to see it, and got to meet a bunch of cool people.
You work with him through like your agency or through like consulting? Yeah.
So that must have been summer into the fall when I started of 2018, going into my freshman year of college.
That's crazy.
So
you got like a lot, like your resume of like people you met is insane.
It's a lot of luck.
Do you think the podcast helped you kind of build the confidence to be able to get the clients for the agency or to start the agency? Like,
yeah, if the podcast didn't happen, there's no shot I ever would have been doing the other stuff, because the podcast, my first client really, and I don't even think he knows this because I probably pretended he wasn't my first client, so we didn't freak out. But one of my first clients, I had worked with a couple of like businesses, but my first like big athlete client was this guy named Paul Rodriguez, or P-Rod, who's a pro skateboarder.
I think he's in the fucking Tony Hawk game.
He definitely is.
In the video game?
He's one of five people. I think he's one of 5 people ever to have more than 10 signature Nike shoes. He was my first athlete client ever.
Wow.
The 5, I think it's people with more than 10 signature Nike shoes are him, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, LeBron, and I think there's 5 people. It's insane. So he took a chance on me. He was one of my first clients ever, and that was also when I was like a freshman or sophomore in college and got to run a bunch of his stuff. So I've been very lucky.
So how'd you prove to these people that you can like run social media though? Because that's what you do. Explain to people what the agency even is.
Yeah, so the agency started doing social media consulting, like content and posting and schedules.
Like on Instagram.
Just Instagram and Twitter a little bit. And it's since evolved to doing more paid traffic stuff. So email marketing, Facebook marketing, some sponsorships and partnerships. And with Paul, I did a little bit of brand deals too. So I think we did deals with Uber Eats and Movement Watches and that kind of stuff.
MVMT, that's crazy. Wow.
So they were like 4 years ago. It was probably when
what's the guy's name who started that company? Oh,
my cousin worked with them on like a filming project. Like they flew him out and a friend of his to like Hawaii, and they got these crazy shots.
They killed it. Yeah.
Scaled that cheap, but like
it was timing for that though, because that was like in 2016, 2017, you can $+ ship Chinese garbage
anything.
watches on Twitter, on Instagram, anywhere. So they just found the wave, made the watches a little nicer, put nice packaging on it. Made a good brand. Facebook guys were cheap as hell. And like they just kept, same with like native deodorant. Like we've talked about before. Sold for $100 million. Like, because like the arbitrage was there. It was like cheap to buy ads on Facebook. Just ran up nice Facebook ads, built the brand, boom, sold to like Procter and Gamble or like Unilever, whatever the hell they sold for. Exactly. All of them.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So the agency's kind of like social media stuff for
like mostly. Do you think it's mostly like content, or is it also like marketing?
It used to be more content. Now it's more, I'd say, performance marketing.
And if I could ask, like, how big's the age? Like, how do you like? Is it people wise, revenue wise, like age, like brand wise? Like, how do you think like, if you like put it relative to somebody else, like, is it big? Is it small? Like, how do you think about that?
I'd say it's a good enough business that I can run while in college.
Okay.
And be able to balance both, but also get to travel and do the things
For sure.
that I like to do and get to work with clients I enjoy doing. Like my goal for this entire thing, ideally in the next 5 to 10 years, I want to work in a company where, probably sooner than that, and it's something I'm working on now, where I probably have to raise money and scale a team. And that's why I loved making Lemonade, because we went from 0 to 400 people in a month and 0 to $130,000 a month. The consulting, I've always looked at, especially if I was going to stay in school, as something that I can do while taking classes and being social, but making enough money to be able to, if I want to go to LA tomorrow,
I can go to LA tomorrow.
That was my biggest thing. I wanted independence where, like, you can ask my parents, I think they've said it's equally frustrating and cool, where there was no like, hey mom and dad, can I go to X?
I'm going.
Hey, mom and dad,
I'm going
to X.
Here's my flight, just so you know.
I mean, it's like I paid for it.
Yeah.
So that's really where I wanted to get, like a place of somewhat financial freedom when school, where I could just, if I want to go to Miami for a day, it's not impossible to go to Miami.
Yeah, 100%.
There's probably
Definitely.
more smart ways of handling money management, but
But honestly, when you're our age and like you had some success, you love doing that type of shit. You know what I mean? Like you just wake up one morning, you're like, hey, actually, I want to go to Miami today. Let's go.
Scottsdale,
you know what I mean?
Arizona.
have a great time.
Like different places. You know what I mean? You just wake up and you're just like, all right, like let's do it, right?
I had this realization that like, in 10 years, if I have a family and
you can't do it.
I can't be like, hey guys,
obviously,
London for a week.
obviously, yeah. No, 100%.
Might as well.
For sure. Talk about the lemonade thing though, because I think that was, I don't say the C word. Can we even say the C word on here? Like, are we allowed to say all that?
Say like C19.
Global pandemic.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Like that was a big deal, right? Like you helped a lot of people with that. Yeah.
Like I think we got a good opportunity to help where we could. Basically, I got sent home from college, and like most people our age, you guys probably the same thing. Your social life is gone in one night, and you're sitting at home like, all right, well, how long is this lasting? What the fuck am I gonna do while it's here? So a friend and I, this student named Alex Scheinman, one of my good friends, he graduated from Penn State probably 2 years before me. We were like, all right, we're lucky that we have a big, like, I was lucky that I had a decent following on Instagram where I was like, I can push something through social, and we have great networks. Like, let's try and mobilize this and see if we could do something. So we started with us two, then it was our friends, and by the time we really got going the weekend, we probably had 80 young college kids, high schoolers, young professionals that wanted to raise money. So we ended up bringing together a collective of these 400 people, and it literally ranged anywhere from the president of a big fraternity at Michigan to one of my friends, Will Levis, who was the backup quarterback of Penn State at the time, and now is going to the draft out of Kentucky, awesome. Which is crazy. Yeah. So the widest range of people, and dancers from different schools, and young professionals, and people that worked at Deloitte, and the high school girls lacrosse captain across the country. And we got them all involved. We'd get on Zoom every night from 9 p.m. to some nights it would end at 11, some nights it would end at 4 in the morning because sleep schedules were fucked during COVID. So there's no such thing. And we figured out ways through bingo boards and Greek life and virtual marathons, which I didn't even know was a thing.
What even is that?
People would run because you couldn't do a in-person marathon. Yeah. So like Will ran 10 miles or 5 miles backwards in under an hour.
You would have like your iPhone or something?
Or just run. Yeah, I can't run 5 miles forwards in under an hour. But he ran 5 miles backwards in an hour, raised like 10 grand. It was on ESPN. Wow. Some kids, John, who you know, John Hartophilus, ran.
He was on the podcast.
He was on the podcast, alumni. Yeah. He ran 20.
Alumni. We're doing alumni now.
Yeah, you guys got a big enough thing. You got alumni on this thing. Yeah. He ran 21 miles, raised money.
John ran 21 miles.
Yeah, he mentioned it.
How fucking
he said close to a marathon.
He was talking so much. I didn't remember what he was saying. Shout out, John.
21 miles.
Dad, what's a marathon?
26.2, but some people would run like 5Ks
Wow.
and they'd have people contribute.
Did you run anything?
Absolutely not.
You're collecting the money,
I
right?
mean, the whole thing. I was running it. So people would donate on all of that stuff. And we raised probably 30K through that, another 80K through bingo boards. We ended up raising $140,000 or $130,000 in a month and a half or 2 months with all of these people. And I tried to keep it interesting because obviously, like, if you have a group of young kids, like, I was like, all right, you guys are giving all of your time. Let's see if we could do something cool to
for sure.
give back to you guys. So I had some of the people I'd had on my podcast or friends come on for some nights to do Q&As who I thought would be interesting. So we had Evan Ingram, who was on the Giants at the time, come on. He's on the Jags. 2 friends, the music group, Loud Luxury came on. My buddy Chase Ellman, who at the time worked at Instagram, I think came on. So we had a bunch of like random people. So it was a really good experience. And I learned a lot about leadership because I didn't realize how hard it is to manage like 300 people in a Zoom until I did that. Like that shit was hard, but I loved it. And that led me to wanting to build an organization where like you have impact and you get to lead big teams because I just found it fun.
Yeah, for sure. What did you do with the money, if I could ask too?
We donated it so we partnered with this guy named Matt Coulter. He's awesome. Still talk to him to this day. He runs a company called a nonprofit called 143 Collective. And there's so many rules in nonprofits where we needed a fiscal sponsor to be able to actually distribute it tax-free. Making Lemonade is now a nonprofit in itself, but that's a whole different story.
501c3.
It took a year, $7,000 to actually do it. It's like building a for-profit was easier than a not-for-profit, which is so fucked in itself. But Matt helped us. We partnered with him. We distributed the money equally to the CDC Foundation, Feeding America, and the Direct Relief Fund. So those were our 3 causes. We wanted to go 1 healthcare related, 1 food related, and then 1 overarching research related.
Awesome. And you were how old when you started this?
I was
14.
I was 19. I was 19 because in March of 2020, right?
That was 3 years ago.
Yeah. So my birthday's August 2000. So I was 19.
And you had already started the media company?
I started the media company when I was 17. So it was 2 years after that.
So you were doing both simultaneously?
And the podcast.
And school.
Dude, I'm curious. Why don't you scale the media company? I feel like you can make that big. Like, you ever seen like Neil Patel?
Yeah, of course.
Or like GaryVee? Like, these guys have big media companies. Like, you wouldn't want something like that? I feel like you'd do a good job at something like that.
Yeah, I'm not against that. I think now that I graduated school, all of that stuff comes into my head. I'm like, where do I want to take this?
Yeah. Like, think about it, you have 6 years under your belt already of doing it.
Crazy.
Like, why go into tech?
I feel old.
No, actually, like relative to other people in the space, like, you are old. You know what I mean? Like, think you're saying people were making fun of you about making podcasts because it was like 2016. Who the hell had a podcast in 2016?
It's like making fun of someone for like buying Bitcoin.
Yeah, literally,
They just didn't understand it.
Crazy.
And, the growth opportunity.
I was listening to a podcast actually yesterday. This guy bought Bitcoin in 2013, $80 of Bitcoin, put $300,000 into it. He has like $33 million in Bitcoin right now. Just like stupid.
Yeah, that guy's got a good amount of money.
Yeah, but besides the point, like, he took a bet on some random crap in 2013. It's worth it.
Yeah.
You're the type of thing, like, think about all the relationships you built, all the people you've met, all this stuff. Like, it's a lot easier for you to start an agency than like for me to start an agency right now. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things on like, I don't think, so a lot of those relationships have turned into other business stuff outside of just, like, I've been able to invest in some of these people's companies who I had on the show and get to partner with them and all this different stuff. So I'm not against it. I love the agency business. Like, it's just, you get to work with cool clients and fun. But after 5 or 6 years of doing it, I'm just at a different stage now where it's like, if I'm going to take a swing and do a venture-backed company, that the thing I've learned about agencies is very good on cash flow. Like, you can,
of course,
like, the cash flow.
You're always positive.
You're always positive. My expenses are 6%. I don't know. It's like my accountant and QuickBooks and
a few VAs,
like software shit and some, like, it's very high margin. The issue is you're not really building an insane amount of equity value unless you're building out a large-scale media operation. The alternative to that is, like, if I'm going to take a swing, and this might also be recency bias because I've liked building bigger organizations like Making Lemonade in the past, and I've been able to invest in some friends' startups and get to see that whole process. Yeah. I just think I could have more impact building a company that I think could help more people than, like, I love my agency and I get to see the impact it does on individual businesses. I just don't know if it can impact millions of people.
That's fair. That's fair.
And if it doesn't, then I can go back to the media business and go right back into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if people will welcome me back, but I can try.
Would you just do both simultaneously? Like, because I mean, you can automate the agency business. That's what's beautiful about it. But at scale, you're continuously like working. You're like working more to then hire out and then end up working less. And then you end up just continuing to work more and more and more as you get more clients, no matter how like well you try to structure to outsource. That's what I'm kind of dealing with as well right now. But, and once you get to like 10, 15 plus clients, you almost just start to become a slave to the clients. And it's like, well, you want to be an entrepreneur and go this certain path, but you're really like, you end up now conforming to those like 9 to 5 work hours. 100%. Maybe you can't do as much of the things as you want when you want. Like, sure, I can go wherever I want, but like maybe I have to be on a call at 1 p.m. So if I'm in Mexico and I got to come back to my hotel, is that really doing whatever you want, whenever you want?
And my thing too with it was like, I always thought you do an entrepreneur and make money to buy your time back. And if you're scaling a media business, you're on the clock always, because if shit hits the fan with the client at 1 a.m, you're answering that phone call. And if you're the owner of the business, you're the one picking up that call. And I've loved it for 5 years because I get to talk to people and I love talking to people and sitting in meetings and doing all of that stuff. But like you said, eventually, like you get stuck to that routine and it's just not the process of you're building something that is a product that everyday people touch.
Yeah.
And after a certain amount of years, like, do I want to try something and take one big swing and see what happens?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It builds the cash flow for that, though. So
exactly. So it's like I've been able to put money in the bank.
It's a stepping stone.
100%.
What kind of ideas you have floating around?
Right now, I'm interested in a combination of like the education space and how, but not from pretty much like the college process seems broken to me.
It is broken.
It is.
So the way that high school students find schools and where they're getting pushed to and how it seems very regional and very based off of where you went to high school. When a lot of kids, like when I went to the University of Kentucky to visit my friend, a lot of these kids had never even experienced any schools. Like the only 3 schools they applied to were Cincinnati, Louisville, and Kentucky.
They don't even know what Cornell is.
No, which is fucked up.
Which is like one of the best schools in the world.
But it's more of a fact that like there's an opportunity gap. Mm-hmm. Versus if you're from an area around here, you probably have a lot of opportunity. Versus a random kid, I think I read a stat that a kid in the average kid in Detroit, I think spends 38 minutes talking with the guidance counselor about college over 4 years.
38 minutes.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I just think there's something wrong in that system. I think there's so much new technology now where there should be a more efficient way for students to figure out right fit places for them and have a social component to it.
For sure.
So I'm very early in it, but that's what I'm excited about. And hopefully over the next couple months, I'll get deeper into it. But I just think the entire education and post-secondary education needs some sort of tweak and fix.
I'm going to push back on you because I think it's so funny. It's like, I heard this thing. Honestly, I felt it too once I graduated college.
Yeah.
Every idea I had in my head was education based. And then 6 months after school ended, you're just like, I don't give a crap about it.
You're ready to be
yeah. You're like doing something else, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because like my first business was in the education space. We're teaching kids how to code.
Yeah.
And then I realized like as I learned more about business and like tech and SaaS and services, it's like it's actually really hard to scale a lot of these like educational companies.
Yeah.
There's not that many massive ones. You know what I mean? Not like venture like VCs don't even like investing in them. You know what I mean? It's very hard, stuff like that. So I'm curious to ask you in 6 months what you think about
we got to do this again.
No, for sure. That's kind of funny because like tech is obviously better. You can scale it. Like the numbers make a lot more sense. But you have to pick the right industry too. And like a lot of guys like our age too, I think where people make not a mistake is like when you're our age and you just learn stuff, you should try shit, you'll just learn stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But like picking the industry that you're in, you got to make sure it's like a huge industry, big problems, and like not easy to solve, but like easy to just get in and like do it, right? Like I know a lot of these universities, like it's so hard to like get involved and then like change them up and like all this stuff. It's like I hate dealing with schools because it's like it's always an uphill battle.
There's a lot of friction.
A lot of friction. Like I remember we used to try to like teach into like the high schools and stuff and just be like, no, like
because the level of bureaucracy you'd have to go through to get anything done.
Just a mess. And like guys like us hate bureaucracy. Think about it. Like think about the stuff you're talking about, like cold emailing, like billionaires. Like that's like going right through bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's not allowed to go through the 7 layers of PR approval to get that done.
Exactly. I'm curious of you sharing some like crazy stories with us because I know you probably do have some crazy stories.
Yeah.
Any off the top of your head that you can just think of with like some like really famous stuff or just like
crazy story that I won't get in trouble.
You won't get in trouble for saying.
That's
exactly.
the most important. Easily. I talked about this right before. One of the crazier days of my life was the first day I started working with Michael. I literally I was doing content and all of that stuff for him, and I didn't know any better. I'm 17, and I meet him at his office in Philly, and I knew we were going to the Patriots game that night. And I was like, all right, like, I guess we'll figure out how we're going to the Patriots game. Walk outside of his office and go into his helicopter. And it's me, Michael, and Joel Embid. And it was just like the craziest experience of my life.
And you start taking content of them, right? Because that's what you're doing for them.
It was like and it was just, that was a crazy experience. I got to go to the ESPYs, which was a very cool experience, and somehow ended up at the Uninterrupted, which is LeBron's company after party, because there's like the ESPYs and then the after party and then the after party. I didn't even know that. At 18, I don't know that there's an after party, but
can't even drink.
But
are you even 21 yet?
Now I am.
Oh, now you are. Right? Yeah.
I was 21 in another state at that time.
Another dimension.
Yeah, exactly. But I was so starstruck that I literally just took notes on like who was there, and it was the crazy. I still have the list on my phone. Probably what else? I interned for one of my mentors early on. Is this guy named Brandon Steiner, who started Steiner Sports, which is a big New York-based sports memorabilia and entertainment company, which, funny enough, is now owned by Fanatics.
Oh, wow.
But Steiner, I give him so much credit. Like, when I was a senior in high school, I did a work study thing where I left every day at 11 a.m. I took 3 classes to go, like, just mentor me, let me shadow him everywhere he went. So, like, I would fly with him on private planes with Mariano Rivera to Syracuse and do a signing, and then, like, get to meet. The first day I met him, he's like, do you want to meet Derek Jeter? I'm like, yeah, I'd like to meet Derek Jeter. And then went to an event and got to do that. And like, so a lot of them are sports related, which for me was a ton of fun because I love sports.
Dude, so what's the secret sauce to all this stuff? There has to be some secret sauce.
You're talking like you have 30 years of experience in this.
Yeah, literally. And you're like 22 years old. Like, what is the sauce? Like,
I wish I knew. I don't think it's any secret sauce.
How much do you sleep?
Still in a good season or bad season? I'd say no, probably not that bad. I sleep like 7 hours, 6.5, 7 hours a night. Yeah, like normal. Like I get my sleep. I think
normal entrepreneur.
I drink 4 coffees a day and sleep 6.5, 7 hours. Like I feel like that's probably what everyone does. Yeah. I think secret sauce, that is, I try to not focus on outcomes with people. I try and focus on just becoming friends with a lot of people, because like, a lot of the people I've met are 3 years later from people I met for some completely different reason. Yeah. And I try to not go into relationships ever asking for shit or having a motive. It's kind of like, and the cool part is it becomes exponential, because once you meet how society perceives as really cool people, when you realize once you're friends with them, it's just another person. Like whether it's a pro athlete or it's a celebrity or it's a business guy or it's your neighbor, we're all fucking people. Like everyone, 100%. I promise you, from seeing enough of these people, everyone's the fucking same. Everyone is the same. So the nice part is,
some people just have more eyeballs on
exactly, but they also want their privacy and have their friendships and do stupid shit and don't like being on video. And everyone's the same. And the nice part is when you meet some of those, you get to meet their friends. And then really, like, my whole thing on this is I just want to get to be friends and have close friends with the people I enjoy spending time with. And if it ends up turning into other stuff, cool.
That's great.
But that's not really the intention. And I've just been lucky where I think any success, which I don't think I'm anywhere near yet. I think hopefully this is very early, but I think it's a combo of 2 things. It's you need hard work and you need luck. Because if you have hard work and not luck, you're just working hard and you don't get the break. But if you get lucky and you weren't working hard, you missed your chance.
And time.
It's timing and luck. So like I got lucky that when I was doing my podcasting happened to be taking off.
Yeah, seriously.
And then digital was taking off. And then I've taken swings where the timing was fucking wrong, or I sucked at it and it didn't work.
100%. Another thing that's like, I think very important is like literally what you said, like just let people, networking is huge. It can change your life. It seems like it has changed your life. You know what 100%. I mean? 100%. So like for anyone listening out, like don't be scared to send that cold email.
And do it to anyone. Like that's the amount of CEOs and entrepreneurs I've talked to who are like, I would love to mentor young people, but nobody fucking reaches out.
Yeah.
Like people, or they reach out.
I think the reason people don't reach out, they don't know what to say though.
Yeah. And if you do it, don't reach out and say, hi, can you please be my mentor? Do not do that. Yeah. But if you take an interest in somebody, like I have kids and I'm super lucky to have it now where people reach out and they just want to like hear a story, like how you did it. And that's awesome. And I reach out to people all the time asking for feedback on there. And then it's just talking to people. Like if I'm on a plane, talk to the person you're sitting next to.
You never know.
If you're in a hotel hot tub, talk to the dude next to you. Yeah. Like a lot of the time, they're really, really cool people who you'd never know otherwise. Like what's worst that can happen? It's like you just talk to them, see what happens.
No, exactly. Yeah, you don't lose anything by just talking to somebody.
People are generally nice people.
No, 100%. That's a good piece of advice. Like, it's a weird piece of advice that no one really thinks about, but it's like, just be nice to people, talk to people. And like, you never know what the hell can happen.
Have a smile, be intentional, and be nice.
100%. Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they get to like 40, 50, they've built a successful business after like a bankruptcy. They've been through a divorce, whatever it is. They have that life experience. They're just like, it's not about the money. It's about the relationships, and it's about communicating with other people, the networking, just being around good people, having good times, and like not just the money, which I think is an important thing.
Yeah, and one thing I took away on that too, and I literally have it stuck in my brain forever from Brandon. Brandon said this shit.
Who's Brandon?
Brandon Steiner from Steiner Sports.
Okay.
Said this shit maybe 7 times a day when I worked for him, and it will never leave my brain. His line was, "It's not who you know or what you know, it's what you know about who." And I thought that was, at the time I didn't understand it, and now I do, because anyone could know people, but it's like, are you great friends with them, and do you know what's happening in their life? And if their little sister had a big play, did you ask them about, like, do you care? Because a lot of people, I think, just play, and they look at people as pawns in a game, and it's not actual relationships.
Interesting.
That's so easy to see through. Like, you can see when you're trying to get used. You can see when people conveniently come into your life at points in your life. I'm sure you guys have experienced this. When you start having success, everyone wants to be friends with you.
Start DMing you, like, who the hell are you?
Like, the amount of people that shit on the podcast and then we're like, yo, can I come to the ESPYs with you, was unbelievable.
Imagine
To
that.
the ESPYs.
Like, what was the timeline on that? A couple of years?
Not even 2.5 years.
Dude, it's literally the power of content. Because I know we were talking about before, I was like, yo, what's the sauce? Like, grow up these people's social media is like just literally content. Like, cool stuff. Like, talk to people, post. That's all it is. And we see it on this thing, like, what, 12 episodes in? And like, it's moving.
You guys are moving.
It's moving. Yeah.
And it's just like the more you do, and then also it's like there's this whole perception to reality thing where like people see that you have different people on your podcast, then they want to go on, and then they start listening. People see on somebody's Instagram that they're at this thing, then they want to get them involved with that. So it's like the more stuff you put out, I think the better. Yeah, as long as it's ethical and good and all that.
Yeah, of course. It looks nice and everything.
A lot of times it might be a little controversial, but they got to get.
Hey, that's the good stuff too.
Controversial is not terrible as long as it's not fucked up. I don't think it's like, I've taken my fair share of like strong takes on stuff, and it's like, I think it's kind of, as long as you stick true to who you are and you're not trying to say something because you know it'll get clicks when you don't actually mean it. Like, be you.
Definitely. I have a question about these like really successful people. Have you seen like one constant among all of them?
100%.
Like, it's like, I think that's the reason why these guys just got it.
Yeah, I think a couple things. Number one, there's no such thing as like guys that don't work hard. Like, they work their asses off, number one, but I think that's expected.
When you say work hard, what do you mean by, like, what does work hard mean?
They were intentional. It doesn't mean that they put in 14 hours a day every day. I'm sure they did that too. But from all of the ones, like, they deeply care about the issue they're solving, and the money came as a result of that. They weren't like immediate just chasing money, and then the idea of what they were doing followed that. Like, the ones that I've met that have reached the pinnacle of their industry, whether it's the Adam Schefters of the world or Jack Dorsey's in sports, politics, business, music, it's people that deeply are passionate and wake up and go to sleep thinking about the thing they do. And then because of that, they also get to make money from doing it. And then the other thing was like, genuinely, except for 1 or 2 of the people I can think of out of 100 maybe, they're all really good people. Like, they're ethical, nice, great people who want to help out and give back to the community. Because I think there's a limit on, like, I think douches can do really well until you can't. Like, I think you can get to a certain point and then you top out, because people don't want to be surrounded by dicks.
That's true. Yeah. And successful people are just nice. Like, a lot of them are really nice because, like, that's how they, obviously they're like stringent, they make hard decisions, but like, they're nice people at the same time.
I've realized a lot of them can be very decisive and might do things that upset people, but they, as people, they might be very intense on a business setting, but as people, they are nice and have ethics and want to do the right thing.
Definitely. No, that's a good answer. And like, I think it makes sense. It's hard to like, because you see them all up, like you said, they're all normal freaking people. They all, right? They all like grew up.
They have families,
they have problems. Yeah, they have problems. Like, they have wives, girlfriends, husbands.
No amount of money or success will fix people's problems.
I even saw GaryVee just got divorced too. Like, he has like a new girlfriend or whatever the hell it is. Like, yeah.
People
like,
go through shit.
Yeah. Mark Cuban, I think, is divorced. All these guys, you know what I mean? Like,
people have problems.
Yeah, real problems. And like, you don't see it because you see like, oh, like they're famous, this, that, and the third. But like, at the same exact time, like, they're normal people, and people have to like remember that too. Yeah. A lot of good stuff here, man.
Yeah,
a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Here.
I want to talk a little bit more about the cold outreach, because you were saying you hit 350 people a day at one point with some old school software.
Yeah,
right?
I was a sicko.
So I'm assuming my partner Mike is listening to this. He's the head of sales at Scale Brands, my marketing agency. We've probably been ramping up to like, I don't know, maybe like 400, 500 very personalized emails per day. But, you know, we got the inboxes, we got the this and that. What were you doing like software tech wise? Were you a one-man team? Did you have help? Was it just like one software?
You just copy and pasting? What
deliverability, DMARC?
It was me in my biology class that I was getting a C in, just copy and pasting emails and making them personal. My software stack was my computer, a Chrome extension called Mixmax to track if people opened or closed my emails. Like to see how many times they opened it.
Yeah, use like HubSpot now for that.
Yeah, so any of that stuff to see if it was opened, the deliverability, and then Rocket Reach, which helped me find people's emails, and then I'd keep creating new emails because I think you only get like 5 per free one, and then I'd start guessing. So like if I want to get in the CEO of something, like let's say I was going for Tim Cook, I would look up some rando from Apple. And then it would be like, all right, well, if his is jesse.k@apple.com. Tim Cook's probably tim.cook@apple.com. Not that I got Tim Cook. That would have been really cool. But I tried. And I would literally just copy paste, make it personal. And I realized very quickly, I used to send these crazy long emails, like 2-paragraph long emails, and nobody cared because what successful person or CEO is time to read my 2-paragraph email. I eventually changed it to some variation of like a 3-sentence, like, hey, I'm super inspired by your thing. I'm a 16-year-old podcaster. Like I've had on XYZ guests. We'd love to have you on if you're interested. That had the best success rate out of any of them. Like quick, to the point, and it worked.
Like unique approach. I'm 16.
Yep. Like the oh shit moment.
I've had multiple guests already. Would you be interested in call to action?
And then I would give the guests I've had affordable thing for other guests that I thought that I'd be like, do you have anyone you think would come on? And then it worked good enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important because a lot of people listening, they probably have servicing based businesses or they're trying to get customers. Like as an entrepreneur, you need to deal with customers or clients. And like, that's an important thing is just like, some people overcomplicate the tech and the fanciness. It's really just grit and just don't overcomplicate it. Test, change the iterations of it. And that's how you've done what you've done.
I have a question now. To grow your agency though, did you use the same tactics?
No.
How did you grow the agency?
All referral based.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like, I think I probably could have done some more outreach stuff and that might be a thing in the future, but it was once again that weird concept of the fact that I didn't want to grow too fast because I was in school. So I was trying to find that balance. I fired a couple of clients because it didn't make sense for me to work with them based off, I couldn't be I needed to work with right fit people based off of the circumstances where like, if I'm in class, I can't be at like, it was the weird, I'd be leaving class to answer client calls and then I'd go back and then I'd do this stuff. Yeah. So I didn't want to grow rapidly quick. I wanted to grow at a pace where it was kind of a constant, steady amount of income with people I enjoyed doing it with. So it was all referral. I'm thinking of, I think every client that I've ever worked with, except one, all stems from the same tree.
Jeez, which is just like referrals left and right.
It was one referral. I can literally think through the whole. I had Mikey Taylor, who's another pro skateboarder on my podcast. Mm-hmm. He referred me to have Paul Rodriguez on my podcast. Paul then hired me as a thing. I eventually got to Michael. I then got to another client based off of that.
It's just a spider web.
And it's just a never-ending spider web of you just work with people throughout that entire process. And then eventually it starts like going from there. But outside, I'm literally trying to think right now. I think, outside of one client that I currently work with, every single one came from the same.
Dude, I think it's crazy that not all you were doing, but like all you're doing is just growing Instagrams.
Yeah, that's what I started
with.
It was literally just started.
You weren't like world class at what you did. You just hustled.
I hustled. Like any 16-year-old now can grow a TikTok account
to 5 million. I had no credentials. My credential was that I interned for Brandon and it was case studies. Like I had good results with Brandon and then I had good results with Paul. Like it was just case studies because why else would you?
Did you even figure out like what was working or you just like, fuck, let me just post this stuff?
I just tried shit. I figured out what worked with them. Yeah, I tested everything. It was great. I was getting paid to test stuff.
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That stuff always blows my mind because like now we work with some guys that do a lot of like buying IG posts, like world stars and like wasted posts, all these type of things. I was like, how the hell do these guys get like 5 million, 10 million, 20 million followers? And like those guys like you are behind all this. They're just like constant posting, like Rap TV, another guy from New Jersey, Dan Snell, like all these guys, like
a bunch of my buddies. Like I'm thinking of it was so many of us that came up and it's funny, I'm even thinking of it as came up together. It's not even like that, but of all of my friends that are entrepreneurs, like everyone who came up in that same group who are now doing it's funny seeing where everyone goes, but all of those guys, the Dunk, who's this guy, Elliot, on Instagram.
He runs like a bunch of like basketball. He runs a bunch of them.
This dude, Buster Share, who I knew growing up, did Hoops Nation and a bunch of those. It was a constant circle of everybody. My buddy Jack Settleman, Snapback Sports, built like the biggest Snapchat-based one and then turned it into it. And funny enough, the guy I started making lemonade with, Alex, now runs an agency with Jack that does talent. So like the worlds collide on stuff. It's just funny to see how it works.
Yeah. So if you're 16 out there, like
get going.
Literally start growing TikTok accounts. So that's the thing right now.
There's no reason not to. And it comes back to like, and I think you guys are great examples of it, is if you have a computer and a Wi-Fi connection.
Oh, you could do it all.
You have the exact same technology that Jeff Bezos has.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, that's
like
a good point.
There's no gap in terms of the physical thing to get started that any of these entrepreneurs had. Like the opportunity is there. It's like if you find a place, find a thing that you're deeply passionate about, see what you're skilled at. If you're not skilled at anything, I worked for Brandon for minimum wage. I think I lost money commuting to New Rochelle and back from New Jersey to do it. And I gave up a senior year of high school social life really to do it. But it was worth it.
100%.
Like it ended up being worth it. And I think
all this got figured out because of that.
And once again, all of that started from the podcast, which is still insane. Like, so if you have to do a class project, even if it sucks, I promise it's worth it.
Do a podcast.
Yeah.
Do a podcast. Yeah. This was this far. How long have we been going? 40, 50 minutes?
45.
Yeah.
This is good.
This is good.
So how was your how was your college life in terms of social life, work balance? Because you're doing all these different things. So like, now, did you stick it out partially because of parents, partially because you were just having a ton of fun? Was it really hard?
So I have some crazy college story in terms of like how that turned out. If you want to go into that.
Yeah.
So freshman year, I don't want to go to senior year of high school. I tell my parents I don't want to go to college.
And they're just like, go fuck
yourself. all of my friends who were entrepreneurs, I had a group of 5 that I became really close with when I was 16. And I was the youngest one of the group, and by a year, and none of them went to college. So I was going to be the only one to go to college.
How'd you come friends with these kids though?
From this group called Next Gen
Summit.
Just said that.
Okay,
So Dylan Gambardella and Justin Laughstand, big shout out. They started Next Gen. Literally when I was a sophomore in high school, I went to this random summit. Didn't know anybody. I just fucking showed up. Met my 5 of my best friends they're still my best friends to this day. They live all around the country. Oregon, Florida, Ohio, Minnesota, everywhere. And met these group of kids. Nobody went to college. So I'm getting chirped left and right. Like, you're going to fucking sell out. You're going to go to college. Like, what the fuck happened to you? I thought you were an entrepreneur. And I also had terrible anxiety growing up, like crippling panic attacks and anxiety. Like, would sit in my high school guidance counselor's office all day, not wanting to be at school. Like, that couldn't sleep in my grandparents' house away from home. Like, crazy shit. So my biggest fear growing up in life was going to college. I couldn't think about going away from home. So I was trying to like use I'm an entrepreneur, too good for business as my excuse to like avoid my anxiety. And how it ended up working was I'm like, I don't want to go to college. And my dad was like, you need to go for at least a year just to see. And then if you want to drop out, go for it.
By all means.
And first week of school comes, I'm like, I'm dropping out. My mom's, I'm so happy she did this, because if she didn't, I would have been a fucked up person. She's like, that's totally fine and we'll support you, but then you need to live on your own and build the business. Like, if you're too good for college, like, you're not living in our basement and just sitting here, like, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So like, all right, I'll stay in college.
college.
And then I ran my business, and I was never at school because I was running a business, and I didn't recognize that you need to go to class to be able to get grades. So my first transcript comes back fall freshman year, and my transcript was a A. So I was like, oh shit, I'm doing well. Next one was a C. I'm like, not so good. Then a W because I withdrew in a class, and then an F. So I had a 2.2 GPA after my freshman fall.
It's tough.
And I was like, oh, I'm fucked. And then I ended up getting a 2.7 for my freshman year. And ended up transferring later on. But the portion of college that I've been trying to balance was like, I want to make sure I didn't regret not having those experiences in that age. And like, I just wanted to be able to do it and say I did it. And I got more of that experience at Cornell than Stevens, because Stevens is very New York City vibe, where I'm just bouncing between meetings all day. Like, going to school in Ithaca, New York, there's nothing else there. Like, you're in a college town and that's it. So I'm very grateful I did it. And the way I've been able to manage it is honestly like, as weird as this sounds, like I put on my Google Calendar like times when I'm going to dinner with my friends and going out just to like block off time.
Time block is good.
I just made it intentional that like I'm gonna make sure I do this.
You're a very intentional person. I can just tell by like you just said literally the word intentional, but like literally all that stuff is intentional. It's like, hey, Stevens, because it's close to New York, I can go to meetings. Like Ithaca, obviously, like time block, everything. Like people who are successful are intentional. Back to the billionaires, like they're all intentional. They're decisive. They're intentional. Like these are like traits that you need to have to be successful, right?
Yeah, back to even the billionaire thing. Like the thing I realized is a lot of them, they just make a decision very quickly and decisive. And there's not, the one thing I learned from a lot of these guys is I was always wondering like, what's the right decision? And the realization I came to is there is no right decision. There's just a decision and then you make the decision right.
I like that.
So a lot of these guys just move quickly, make a decision, and if it's a fuck up, then they'll fix it. But making a decision quickly and fucking up is better than sitting and not making a decision forever.
Yeah, it's like the consequence of indecisiveness is worse than the consequence of a quick failure and then learning from it.
Should I post this? Should I not post it? Just fucking post it.
The amount of times
you can delete it later.
The amount of mistakes I've made, I make a mistake every day, but like
they're quick mistakes.
They're quick mistakes. You learn from them. You don't do it the next time.
Yeah, 100%.
Like you need to have mistakes, I think, to learn.
No, for sure. So the next like 6 months of Jesse K, what's it all about? 'Cause you just finished school, right? So like you're
just finished school.
Yeah, you're going to Miami probably. You're probably going to go to Miami to have
I'm
a good time.
going to Miami on Monday, but I'll only be there for a week. The next 6 months looks like for me working on this project and company, see what happens with that. I'm going to do a little bit of travel because I promised myself that if I'm going to like do a month or 6 weeks traveling like Europe, like this is going to be it because I'll never have that chance again for the next decade or two. So I'm going to go with a friend there. And then outside of that, I'll spend time in New York, a little bit in Florida, and then I'll be in Ithaca for a good amount too because I can work. And actually, as weird as it sounds, I sometimes work better up there because there's nothing else. I'm not distracted. When I'm in New York, going to a dinner every night, I have to see this person, somebody's coming through town. In Ithaca, like I'm blocked off and I can actually work. And I want to enjoy some of like the traditional senior spring before it's gone forever.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome, man. Like, I'm excited. We got this done quick.
Yeah, we literally, from first text to finishing the episode happened in less than 12 hours. I don't think I've ever done that ever, especially in person.
I'm gonna bother you by these next guys you have on here because I know you have great ideas. We can have on
you can have so many great people. We'll just get the trendsetters pipeline to this going.
Yeah. This was good. You do anything else?
Yeah, I mean, you're a free man now. You're out of college. Like I remember when I left college. Well, so I dropped out, but I dropped out like second semester my sophomore year.
We're giving him shit for dropping out.
Yeah.
He did a $1.5 million a month.
You should have talked to my friends. They would have been cheering you on.
Yeah.
Like, no, literally, like, I think it was a couple months after so I was like making maybe a couple grand a month in profit. And I was like, all right, this is enough proof of concept for me to get the fuck out of here. And then like 6 months later, I hit my first like 6-figure month, which was revenue, but I made like 30 or 40 grand. I like 18, 19, got my first place. It was very quick. Like I grew up pretty quick. But I remember just my first year of college was just brutal. Like I was doing D1 track and field, mechanical engineering, had a crazy like second semester where I was like juggling all these things. And I remember like, so after my second semester, I dropped out. I would have like dreams of like a paper having to be due in like 30 minutes and having to go rush, or like having to finish when you're an athlete, you have like study hours. You have to go to like study hall and like sign off on it. And sometimes you'd have to go there last minute or like stay super late, even if you had like no work to do, or if you needed to go see a teacher, doesn't matter. You have to go to study hall to finish things up. So I would just have dreams where I would just like wake up and be like, shit, do I actually have that? And then I'm like, wait, no, like I'm done.
Yeah.
Like there's no one that you have to call to other than like, maybe if your parents ask you to do something, you'll go and do something for them. You can do whatever, whenever, wherever you want. If you have a little bit of money and like you have your own thing, especially if like you're not working a job. So it's crazy. Like that, as soon as I left, I was like, shit, I can do anything. Like I went to Bali, like this, like last summer I went to Europe.
I went to Mexico, everything.
I went to Bali like I had my 20th birthday. Like I was riding an elephant with like, my girlfriend was 18. Like I had just turned 20. So like, that's crazy.
I just had that. Yeah. That realization hasn't really,
you're gonna have that.
It hasn't really hit yet because I even woke up in a panic like yesterday, like, holy shit. Did I submit that assignment? I'm like, wait, I already walked in graduation. I haven't gotten my diploma yet, but I looked at my grades and they're in.
Yeah.
No, the only tiny bit of that was I was on a plane. I was with my family in Utah last week, just snowboarding. We were on the plane back and I looked at my calendar. I'm like, I don't have anywhere to be until January 11th. And this was my first realization of that. Cause I've always been the type of person where like, and you could ask any of my friends, it's for better or for worse, that like, in Ithaca this semester, I was away 12 of 15 weekends traveling for work or seeing people. So I was always gone Thursday nights to Monday mornings because my last class ended Thursday at noon and my first class was Monday at 7:30 p.m. So I was never there. So I'm always moving on the go, but I've never done it for an extended amount of time. Yeah, it's tiny.
So how do you get from like Ithaca
to LaGuardia to wherever?
Oh, wow.
Or a lot of times I would drive to New York because it's a 3.5 hour drive to my house. And like by the time you go to Ithaca Airport, fly out, layover. So it would depend where I was going. This semester I went to Florida a couple times just to hang out and see people. One of my clients is down there, so I saw them. So it was a nice like combo. I was at Penn State twice because I have a ton of friends there and fuck around.
The one kid who does the
Brad, you have to have him on.
Sheets.
Yeah, Brad Kraut, Academic Weapon. That's one of my. I've known. He's a perfect example. People are like, "Oh, how did you become friends with him? Like, you must be." It's like, no, I've known him for 3 years. Like, he was in Making Lemonade. Same thing with Will. They're like, "Oh, you're conveniently friends now with him. Now that he's this dude Will Levis, the quarterback, is going to be a first round pick." And they're like, "How did you become?" I'm like, "No, once again, he was in Making Lemonade. Like, these are my friends. It's not just people." Like, I think, but. I went there twice. I was in Lexington once to see Will in Kentucky. I was in Boston twice. I was in Vegas. I don't know. So many.
How'd you meet Salim? I saw that on your Instagram.
He was at Penn State, and and Brad connected me to him.
Damn.
Salim's dope. You should have them on when they're up here. Him and Chaffee are unbelievable. Yeah. You should have him and Chaffee on. They are two hilarious people.
Yeah. Those guys like sick, like even in person.
Awesome. Salim is literally the same dude. Like it's some of the stuff that he did, I could not believe it was real. I was like, I would break in a minute.
Yeah.
So I literally, I was in Vegas. I was in, I don't know. I kept traveling. So I usually travel a lot, but I've never had an extended amount of time to do. So I'm literally on this plane and I'm thinking like, oh my God, wait, I have nothing to do for 10 days and I don't have school.
Yeah.
And I had this whole realization, so I literally texted in 2 of my different friend group chats. I was like, somebody needs to tell me I'm insane before I book a flight to Europe tomorrow. Like I had a little bit of that thing. I'm like, I could just go. Like there's no reason I can't go. Yeah. And they're like, Jesse, you're being insane. Like you're going to Europe in March. So I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't need to do that right now.
Not yet.
But I'm starting to have that realization, and it's so weird. Like there's nowhere I need to be for the next ever.
Yeah. I think this is the most interesting one that within like 2 to 3 years, I'm gonna look back and be like, damn, like we had Jesse on 2 to 3 years and be like some fucking $100 million company.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
And we had him on early.
Well, we're gonna run it back in 2 to 3 years.
Of course.
I hope we also have that same offer if shit hits the fan and I end up working at.
You'll be back here too. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Like it's because like we've known of each other for like years now. Like 3-4 years.
We've never met in person.
I think I DM'd you way back when I was in like freshman year.
I looked. Yeah, I saw because I was like,
there was that one girl, I forgot her name. I looked back. It was like I think you were friends with her at Stevens.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, you know her? She's like, yeah, I'm in a class with her. And I was like, oh shit, like that's how we know each other. And then you became friends with John.
And
too,
John, you knew.
Yeah, through my girlfriend. So I was like, damn, like. Yeah, this was nuts. Kyle was like, yo, we need an episode. And I was like, I'm on Instagram.
Yeah, what was your content for who I was? What was the context of that conversation?
He just like sent me your Instagram. I was like, oh, cool. What does he do?
Honestly, all the guys like I brought on, I just like send this Instagram. I'm like, yo, we're having this guy. He's like, okay. I'm here and I'm like, dude, just look. Like, he's
and like the cool thing is like no matter who we've spoken to, there's always some like cool shit that you'll get out of anyone. Like you don't know them at all on social media, and then you actually have a conversation.
I'll give you an example. Yeah. One guy does exotic cars, right? Like he like rents exotic cars in New York and like New Jersey. He lives in Edgewater.
Okay.
He's like 10 Urises. He's like a year older than us.
That's like, insane.
Yeah.
Like, he rents cars out for like $1,500 a day, $2,000 a day. Like rappers, like you could athletes, everything.
Yeah.
Right? Another episode that we just had was this guy who has like a really big vape company, makes like $300K a month. Some like stupid number, right?
That's insane.
I put them both in a group chat. The vape kid's about to buy a Urus from the guy, right?
No way.
Like this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
So literally all from like within the last few weeks, just group chat.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. This like podcast stuff is kind of
podcast is fun.
It's like it's the connections.
Because
like,
you get to meet a never-ending amount of people. That's so funny about it's funny because a lot of people see my Instagram. They're like, what do you do? Like, no, I try and keep it very like vague.
I try to click the podcast. I was like, I can't even find the podcast. Like,
yeah, I try and keep it like, I don't know, vague at this point. It's just easier to explain because everyone's like, what is all of this? And that, it's more fun explaining it like this.
Yeah,
like
keeping it open-ended.
Low-key guys, like young guys like you, like in like the industry. There's another guy in like LA too who was doing all like the Cloud House stuff. I forgot his name. He was like behind all like who are those famous two guys like do all like TikToks and shit.
Griffin Johnson, Bryce
Huddy, and
who's like their manager?
Michael Gruen. That's my buddy. Yeah, I've known him for 5 years. Yeah, I've known Michael since I was like. I've known Michael since I've known Michael since I was 17.
There you go.
Wow, this is a good reminder. I got to reach out to him.
Yeah,
But that's so funny that you say that. Michael's great.
Give me those vibes. I have other buddies. Have you heard of burrito blanket? Like it was a blanket that looked like a tortilla.
Okay.
And it was like selling online. Like it went crazy viral online. Yeah. One of my buddies, Tyler Lubin, started this company. He did the same thing you're doing, but for Jose Canseco.
That's cool.
And he was like growing his social media. When Jose Canseco fought like in like a rough and rowdy, he did his whole like BS with all that stuff. That's so like you guys, there's like an industry of like low key guys like you that just run these like social accounts in a sense and like just social presences. That's like it's insane, right? Yeah. And it's funny when you see the guys behind the the phone, because those are the guys with like the power. You know what I mean? Like those are the guys who know what's up. But yeah, man. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. Gruen. So you know Gruen.
Yeah, that's so funny. Cool. I got to tell him that he came up with this.
100%. Yeah, because I saw you had Griffin on, right?
Yeah, I had Griffin on, and that I met Griffin through Gruen years ago. But he's like, it's been cool seeing his thing because the first time we met, I think, was when he was still a nursing student in like Illinois, like 3 years ago before the whole craze, and then he moved to LA to chase it, and
he figured it
worked.
Out.
He took the swing.
Yeah, those guys.
Because that's the other thing too, is about a lot of the successful guys, especially the young ones. Like they just took risks. Oh, that's another thing with the billionaires. They all took risks. Yeah. Like they took very intentional, calculated risk, but it was risk that they knew that they had an upsized return at. Like they didn't just like throw all their chips on red. Like they knew that they were good at it.
On the red you could double.
Yeah, exactly. They knew that they could. It was an industry that they had either expertise, knowledge, or experience in, and they bet on themselves.
100%.
And like I think that works with a lot of these guys.
Yeah. And who better to bet on than yourself for the most part?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like if you're gonna spend 7 years betting on somebody, like if you think that you're capable, why would you not do it on yourself?
And if you're not, you can invest in other people.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Angel invest.
Exactly. Those guys make good money too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. No. What do you got?
I got one more topic of conversation.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, when you were younger, you kind of had like social anxiety. And one of the things that you did, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, to combat it was that you actually did public speaking. So I want to ask you a little bit more about like picture yourself that day, like getting on the stage, preparing whatever it might be. Because personally, I'd love to do public speaking at some point, not because I think I would like it, but because that's like the one thing that I think I might be a little bit like fearful of. And I'm scared of like almost nothing, but getting on a stage, having 5,000 people like watching me, and like this podcast could get 20,000 views, but like I'm so comfortable and like we're just having a conversation. But like when you're staring at like thousands of people, like even when I would do presentations in high school, it'd be like, in front of a class of 20 people, you kind of like tense up a little bit, and you're like, you think about what it is that you're going to say before you get in. Maybe you're sweating a little bit. So like, I want to ask you about that process.
Yeah. So I had absolutely terrible anxiety, social anxiety, panic attack, separation anxiety, all of it. And the first way that I got through it, I desensitized through the podcast, because regardless or not of if people were knowing that people were listening to it, you still realize like, okay, and you gain confidence. You start speaking and you're like, all right, you start to become an authority in the space. And then you're like, all right, people want to hear from you. But the first time I did the public speech, as you guys can watch on that YouTube video, like I literally I walk out, I'm in Toronto. So keep in mind, I'd never given a public speech. Yeah. And my dad was probably shitting himself in the crowd thinking I was going to have a panic attack. But like, they're like, all right, what do you want to walk out to? I'm like, what do I want to walk out to? What the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, Drake, it's Toronto. So I walk out to Drake, and then I'm just like, I literally walk out there. Like, all right, you have 9 minutes. I have my hoodie on, and I walk out to Drake. I'm like, oh fuck, now what? Like, what do I do?
No presentation, nothing.
I had a couple of slides of pictures, but and then I did that. I walk out, and I had never been there before. Obviously, it's like the Sony Center, I think it was called, in Toronto. Walk out, turn left. I was in like the green room, and it was all these random people. Like it was the most random collection of people. It was Gary. It was Alex Mashinsky. Funny enough, from he was the guy who started one of the crypto companies that just Celsius, maybe, that just went under. Like he might be getting investigated. I don't know about that. but it was all these people. And I looked out, I literally walk out on the stage, turn left. I see a bigger crowd than I'd ever seen. I'm speaking. And then I look up and I see a second floor, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And I realized that I had 2,000, see Siri, even like that.
Jumping in.
So after speaking to, I think it was 3,000 people or 2,800 people, that significantly lowered it. But then also like, you just got to do it over time. And I always feel the nerves. Like I felt more, I feel less nerves with more people than less. Like if you're talking to 20 people, I think that's way harder than 3,000 people is kind of just a blob of people. And like, you're just talking to like, you're talking to the space,
the air.
And then you could pick you pick one person to look at and smile at and you go through that. But the most rewarding one to me, and I think like if you like speaking, and it sounds like, I mean, obviously both of you guys have a cool story to share. Going back to my middle school and speaking to the whole student body was the single most rewarding thing I've done in my entire life.
That's so interesting. Middle school.
My middle school, like I've been lucky that both my high school and middle school have invited me back to like do some speaking stuff there. But I went back and spoke to the whole student body last spring for my middle school in June, I think. And like that alone was like, all right, any anxiety I have for public speaking, worth it. Because you get to go back and you realize that I put it on Instagram and I was like, the 12-year-old version of me would have been too anxious to even be sitting in the audience in this auditorium. I would have been in the guidance office right now. Yeah. I could have never imagined speaking to them. So I think it's just like, I look at it less as like, oh, this is really cool and I need to get through it. And more as like, I need to push through this and do this because if it could change one kid's life that was similar to me, then it was worth it. Yeah. So when you spin it like that, it becomes easier mentally, I think, to actually do. Mm-hmm. But I would highly recommend it. I think public speaking is fun. I never have like went to do it. All of it's been like random inbound stuff that like, I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll do it. But I feel like one of my friends runs a business. You should have him on, Jonah Stillman. He wrote a best-selling book with his dad on generational gaps and then became the Gen Z ambassador to the NFL and now just does speaking shit. Like he just makes money going around the country doing speaking, and he also does research too. But like, that's a real legitimate business that people do. And there's so many cool opportunities that come through. Like me and him went on a trip to San Francisco for a week, paid for because we did a speaking thing with Adobe and like the New York Times. Like you could just, it's fun. And like you get to experience new places you would have never been able to do.
Yeah. Awesome. No, like again, you're hella intentional, bro. Yeah. Like that's the word. Like you're super intentional. Cause like even that stuff, like you're like, I was just did it. You know what I mean?
Cause we're at the age where it's like, the risk, there's more risk in not doing things than doing things and failing.
Yeah. Like, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen? All right, it doesn't fucking work.
Tomorrow you dropped out. Yeah. It's like you're never going to have the opportunity to fail, fall on your face, and just go like right back to school whenever. You'll always have the opportunity to go back to school. You'll never have the opportunity to take.
And then you realize school's kind of useless.
And that's the thing that I realized too with my, like, if I want to work on this business, I was like, if I'm 22 right now, and let's say building a tech company or an education company is 7 to 8 years to see if it works or it doesn't. Even if it falls on its face, I'm 30. And
you have another
I have another 50 years 50 hopefully. Years, I'll go back to the media space. I don't know.
60 by then.
Yeah, so it's like
you could probably name 100 people that didn't even start till they were 35. Like GaryVee, Grant Cardone.
Gary with the wine and all that
think
stuff.
Think about Grant Cardone, like all these guys.
So it's I just think that there's more risk in not going after stuff when you're young than doing it and failing.
No, for sure. I think that's a good place to end it right there.
Yeah, man, we appreciate having you.
Yeah, this was fun.
It's a good unexpected one.
Unexpected but fire one. And I think I think we're gonna do a lot together now because we've spent some time together. I think that's the biggest thing. We just have to spend. People have to spend time together, right? Yeah. The podcast has forced us to spend time with like interesting
meet new people, become friends with them, become friends with their friends, and
exactly.
But I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, everyone knows what. Everyone knows what to do now. You better like, subscribe, comment.
Where can everyone listening find you? We're gonna have it. You know where the first link we're gonna have is your speech. That's don't
watch that one. Whatever you do, don't watch that one. Or if you do, judge me excessively in the comments and make fun of me.
Feedback is good.
Feedback is radical candor.
But where can they find you?
Instagram, I'm Jesse, JESSE.KY11. You know how hard it is to get like a better username? I fucking Jesse.K11. That shit sucks. I made that when I was like in 7th grade and I haven't been able to change it. You can email me, Jesse, JESSE at VyberMedia, VYBER media.com. I'm pretty responsive on. I'd say I'm better on those two than anything else, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank
you.
Appreciate it.
Like, comment, subscribe. We're getting bigger, all right? We're getting bigger. We'll be there soon.
2023, you guys are gonna go crazy.
Exactly.
For the next Bitcoin, so make sure you stick around because we're gonna appreciate.
Exactly. That was a good one. Thanks, guys.
Bye bye. Talk to you soon. Later.